In the past, Britain did not require fast, glitzy, or even thrilling automobiles. It needs to survive. Rationing had just ended, bomb sites had left scars on towns, and people were readjusting to normal life after years of suffering in the early 1950s. A tiny, unassuming saloon that promised something subtly revolutionary, reliable mobility for regular people, arrived into this precarious period. The Ford Anglia 100E was never hailed as a technological marvel, nor was it ever noisy or stylish. However, it rose to prominence as one of the most significant vehicles on British roads for a few short years. Then it disappeared from recollection, almost without ceremony. It didn't fail immediately. Rather, history just progressed more quickly than anyone had anticipated. So why did a vehicle that a whole generation had trusted go silently from the annals of history? Britain was reconstructing itself piece by piece after the war. While resources remained scarce and exports were given priority in order to boost the economy, industry was under tremendous pressure to provide items that were inexpensive. Car owners were pragmatic, cautious, and frequently purchased their first car after years of waiting. The British company Ford was well aware of this fact. The business prioritized familiarity, longevity, and cost-effectiveness over innovation for its own sake. When the Anglia 100E was first released in 1953, its purpose was to reassure families rather than to dazzle journalists. At a time when steadiness was more important than speed, it stood for stability. When compared to its upright ancestors, the Anglia 100E initially appeared to be more contemporary. Its rounded pontoon style gave it a clean, modern look by eschewing discrete wings in favor of smoother, integrated bodywork. For a little car, the interior seemed quite cozy. Families could sit together, changed because of people on the wide bench seats, and the cabin prioritized functionality above elegance. For many families, this meant more than just transportation. It was freedom, the chance to travel without having to depend on packed trains, see family, or take vacations by the sea. However, one of the car's biggest inconsistencies was hidden beneath its sleek exterior. Some competitors already viewed the Anglia 100E's engineering layout as antiquated due to its earlier side-valve engine configuration. Ford made this decision on purpose. Modern performance was not nearly as valuable to post-war owners as the engine's simplicity, reliability, and ease of maintenance. Reliability became its best selling point. Spare parts were cheap, and mechanics all over Britain grasped it right away. Ford provided confidence rather than risk as others experimented with more recent overhead valve technologies. The Anglia's popularity and eventual demise were both shaped by this choice. The automobile gave a faithful but unenthusiastic performance. The driving style was calm rather than aggressive, the acceleration was modest, and the peak speed was unimpressive. Owners relied on their Anglias and did not brag about them. Furthermore, reliability by itself would quickly seem outdated in a market that is becoming more and more influenced by optimism and technical advancement. Nevertheless, statistics cannot adequately convey the emotional impact of the Anglia 100E. It was the first automobile that thousands of British families had ever owned. Images from the time period depict proud drivers polishing chrome on Sunday mornings, luggage attached carefully to roof racks, and kids leaning against rounded fenders. During a time when Britain was rediscovering mobility and opportunity, it conveyed workers and newlyweds to modest homes in growing suburbs. Ironically, the car's seamless integration into daily life made it both unforgettable to those who shared it and forgettable to history books that emphasize performance and invention. The stakes were larger than they seemed for Ford. Strong domestic sales were necessary for the business to stay ahead of the fierce competition from Vauxhall, Austin, and Morris. While engineers worked on more sophisticated designs for the future, the Anglia 100E provided steady revenue, stabilizing Ford's portfolio during a crucial transitional period. It served as a link between pre-war ideas and the contemporary automobile era in many respects. If vehicles like the 100E hadn't kept manufacturing occupied and consumers devoted, Ford's subsequent achievements could have come too late. The Anglia's ability to endure was one of its most distinctive qualities. Owners regularly put them through hard winters, on rugged country roads, and with maintenance schedules that would have troubled a modern car. Delivery drivers and taxi drivers valued their dependability and frequently reported engines that continued to run reliably even under extreme strain. There were rumors that Anglias had survived years of daily labor with only standard maintenance. Although these accomplishments did not make headlines, they did foster confidence, which in the 1950s was the most important money a car could gain, but by the end of the decade, the rate of change had quickened. As the British economy grew, customer demands changed and consumers started to want more than just dependability. They desired new styling that represented a forward-thinking society, improved performance, and sophisticated engineering. In 1959, Ford unveiled the new Anglia 105E, which had an overhead valve engine and a very contemporary appearance. Almost immediately, the 100E seemed outdated in comparison to its successor. There was no abrupt collapse, no dramatic failure, and no scandal. The conservative mentality of the Anglia 100E was simply out of date in a world that had moved on. Older models were heavily used, swapped for cheap, and finally scrapped as newer models came out. Numerous people were killed by rust as a result of British weather and inadequate corrosion protection. Few owners gave preservation any thought, in contrast to luxury or sports automobiles. They had fulfilled their role, and it was time to go on. The Anglia 100E's disappearance from public consciousness can be explained by this silent departure. It lacked the inventiveness that draws historians and the glitz that entices collectors. However, the fact that it didn't make the news belies a more profound reality. It was a complete success. It sustained Ford during a critical period, enabled regular people resume their usual lives, and demonstrated that when a country needed certainty, dependability might be more important than excitement. Surviving instances today seem almost insignificant in comparison to acclaimed classics. Their familiarity, rather than performance or uniqueness, is what makes them so appealing. They serve as a reminder of a Britain characterized by perseverance, fortitude, and modest triumphs as opposed to large-scale actions. History was never intended to be drastically altered by the Anglia 100E. Rather, it silently transported history, family after family, mile after mile. Maybe that's why its removal seems so appropriate. The vehicle that was so well integrated into daily life also merged so well with the history of automobiles. However, it never really disappeared for some who can still hear the sound of its engine or feel the comfort of its roomy seats. Instead of becoming a public legend, it merely became a part of individual memory. The cars that helped individuals live their lives when they needed them the most are oftentimes the ones that matter the most, not the ones we noisily celebrate. Consider subscribing and returning with us as we continue to explore the machines that subtly created the modern world we drive in. If you love reliving these lost tales of automotive history.